This is the story of an Austrian Archduke who became the Emperor of Mexico. A real glow-up, as the kids might say. But those kids are idiots, and the only possible outcome is tragedy. Let's get this party started, shall we? Maximilian I of Mexico had a regal beard. I mean, just look at that thing. I want to curl up and read a book in that beard. I would like to travel back in time and make love in that beard, while the snow falls gently around me and some young mystical woman is playing violins softly in the near distance. It's simply fucking beautiful, right? Look at it! Okay, let's take a step back. This is a history channel, not some beard kink OnlyFans page, you perverts. In 1832, Maximilian was born Archduke Ferdinand Maximilian of Austria, or, as his friends called him, Ferdinand Maximilian Joseph Maria von Habsburg-Lothringen. Good luck getting the DMV to put that mess on your driver's license. There is a space in my surname, and the pricks struggle with that. What, your keyboard doesn't have a space bar? We live at a time when people are buying magical computer currency whose value is based on the operations of a calculator I had back in 1982, yet you can't figure out how to retain the space in my name. Fuck you, Karen. I am off topic. I got a little emotional, and for that I apologize. Maxi was the younger brother of Franz Josef, and old Franz would eventually become Emperor of Austria, King of Hungary, and ruler of other various states in the Habsburg monarchy, which is a lot of titles to squeeze onto your desk's nameplate. Being that Maxi's older brother was at the head of the line of succession and going to suck up all the cool jobs, there wasn't much left for Max to do, other than sit around, be enormously wealthy, and groom that luscious beard. If history teaches us anything, it's that if life offers you the option to sit and do nothing, or become a ruler halfway across the world, one should always do nothing. You'll be happier, you'll have more friends, and you're far less likely to get shot in the face. Despite his older brother being permanently picked first for the dynasty's dodgeball team, it doesn't mean Maximilian lived a life completely without personal achievements. He became Commander-in-Chief of the Imperial Austrian Navy at just 22 years old, and after only 4 years of naval service, which I am certain was due solely to what an amazing sailor he was, and nothing at all to do with his brother being the big kahuna of the empire. Ironically, this was the single position of his life where he was genuinely competent and broadly respected, and one he would lose after clashing politically with his brother, Emperor Franz Josef. During the latter 2 years of his service to the Navy, his big brother appointed him as Viceroy of Lombardy-Venetia, which was a region of modern-day Italy. Before we proceed, it's important to know that our friend Maximilian was raised just after the Age of Enlightenment, and he was intelligent, aspirational, and quite liberal for the period. Certainly far more liberal than Franz Josef, or the typical royal. In fact, he was disgusted by the brutality employed by the Austrian Empire to stomp out early rebellions, whereas the average noble couldn't have given a shit less. Lombardy-Venetia was a politically unstable region of the Habsburg Empire, and openly hostile to Austrian rule. Archduke Maximilian had a gentle touch and desired to win over the populace, rather than crush them and create bloodshed in the streets. He made many provisions and was considered an excellent administrator, but he was never going to earn the respect of the residents who demanded total independence from the Austrians. It's a shame he would learn nothing from this experience. Side note, in 1857, 24-year-old Maxi married 17-year-old Princess Charlotte of Belgium. The age gap wasn't unusual for European royal marriages, so let it go, prudes. Also, Maxi had begun construction on their swank new home on the Adriatic Sea, Castello di Miramare, the year before their wedding. I'm a man of simple tastes, so I'm pretty sure I could be happy there. I wonder if there is a hot tub, or at least a designated Jello wrestling arena. Anyway, in 1859, the Second Italian War of Independence broke out, resulting in Austria losing Lombardy. Emperor Franz Josef removed Maximilian from both of his positions, as Viceroy of Lombardy-Venetia and as Commander-in-Chief of the Austrian Imperial Navy. Thus, Max was, once again, an unemployed noble with nothing to do other than groom that glorious beard and make love to his young wife in their palace by the sea. Poor bastard. It sounds awful. Oh, By the way, a couple of years before the shit hit the fan in Lombardy, Venetia, Maxi had met Emperor of the French, Napoleon III, in Paris. No, not that Napoleon. This Napoleon. Napoleon III was the OG Napoleon's nephew. The Archduke had made a very favorable impression on Emperor Napoleon, which, as it turns out, was a giant fucking mistake. Okay, now unemployed, yet ambitious, and apparently bored with having nothing to do other than eat, drink, and bang Charlotte on a veranda overlooking the sea, Maximilian was convinced by Napoleon III and a bunch of Mexican monarchist conservatives, who were members of Mexican nobility, to become Emperor of Mexico. Why conservatives enjoy being ruled by a king, any available king, I'll just never understand. Due to the Mexican economy being devastated by years of civil war, Mexico's new liberal president, Benito Juarez, had suspended payments on foreign debts incurred by the previous conservative government. France was one of the nations not getting their payments, and Napoleon took that personally. Actually, he embraced it as an opportunity to install a pro-France Catholic monarch in the Americas. The Mexican conservatives couldn't tolerate Juarez's liberal reforms, and, as stated, they preferred a monarchy over a democracy. Conservatives love having someone to call Big Daddy. France, with the assistance of conservative Mexican generals, invaded Mexico and overthrew the liberal government, sending President Benito Juarez into exile. Although we today see the absurdity of an Austrian ruling over Mexico, the conservatives believed that having an authentic member of the Habsburg family as emperor would give their puppet regime a sense of legitimacy. They were incorrect. Archduke Maximilian was assured that the Mexican people wanted him, and the French military would always be there to support him while he created the Second Mexican Empire. So, he and Charlotte packed their bags and headed off to Mexico City, and they declared themselves Emperor Maximilian I and Empress Carlotta of Mexico. It reminds me of when Jack stood on the prow of the Titanic and declared himself King of the World. What could possibly go wrong? The entire plan happily ignored the existence of the Monroe Doctrine, which was a piece of paper where the United States demanded social distancing from the European powers. Basically, despite not being able to rule the entirety of the Western Hemisphere, the US wasn't going to tolerate any European expansion on their side of the planet. They said, and I quote, "Don't y'all be coming over here with your pretty languages, your fancy big words, and your sexy smelling perfumes. If we find y'all over here, we'll dismount our sisters and come get your asses. Yee-haw!" Or something like that. However, at the time, the United States was balls deep in their own hot and sweaty civil war, so they couldn't do a damn thing if some Eurotrash country wanted to swoop on in and grab a few colonies for itself. 2 paragraphs ago, I asked, what could possibly go wrong? Well, everything, apparently, and almost immediately. Max and Charlotte, I'm sorry, Carlotta, I'd forgotten she went native. Well, neither of them spoke Spanish, certainly not fluently. Don't you just hate it when you travel around and grace a foreign nation with your presence, and they haven't even bothered to learn your language? What kind of shitty tourism industry did Mexico have in 1864? Personally, I prefer going where people don't speak English or eat the same foods I have at home. Otherwise, you may as well hop aboard one of those floating trailer parks they call a cruise ship, sit in that lavatory they call a pool, and get drunk while you wait for the sepsis to kick in. Shit. I went off the rails again. This is why this channel will never be a success. Okay, so as we know, our ill-fated friend Maximilian had been widely seen as enlightened and politically progressive. For whatever reason, that band of Mexican monarchists assumed he'd abandon all of that once he was handed the empire. Guess what? Correct. He did not. He kept many of the government's liberal reforms in place, and even offered amnesty to Benito Juarez, which put him in bad favor with the nobles who had assisted him in getting the throne. Fortunately, Napoleon III didn't want the conservative nobles to control the government either. So, for the moment, he still had the protection of the French military. The moment didn't last long. In 1865, the American Civil War came to an end after the Dirty South, aka the Confederacy, was body slammed by the Union States. This freed up the United States of America to enforce their social distancing doctrine. The U.S. had never recognized the so-called Second Mexican Empire and continued to express support for the liberal government of President Juarez. The United States chose not to invade, but they put heavy diplomatic pressure on France to withdraw. I wonder if they threatened 100% tariffs on all French goods, but then didn't follow through with the threat. Anyway, at first, it appeared that the French would hold the line, but many battle-hardened veterans of the American Civil War were joining the Mexican army. Juarez received substantial financial support from the United States, and Napoleon's plan for Mexico had become extremely unpopular in France. This all led to Napoleon III withdrawing French troops from Mexico in 1866, leaving Emperor Maximilian I with a limited number of Mexican troops still loyal to him. Not long after the French withdrawal, at the age of 26, Empress Carlotta saw the fever dream of the Second Mexican Empire disintegrating and traveled to Europe to beg Napoleon for the return of the French troops. She was unsuccessful, and she experienced a severe psychological collapse. She would never return to Mexico. She would die in Bouchot Castle in Belgium in 1927 at 86 years of age. Back in Mexico, despite repeated advice to abdicate and return to Europe, Maximilian refused to leave. He could have been back at Castello di Miramare, sipping wine, eating pasta, and sunning his nuts. But he stayed. He believed abandoning Mexico would legitimize the Republican cause and dishonor the men still fighting for him. This was less stubborn heroism than a fatal misunderstanding of how little leverage he had left. Despite being liberal and conciliatory, just as in Lombardy-Venetia, Maximilian had never won popular support and failed to realize that, as an Austrian monarch, he never could. Maxi consolidated his remaining forces in Querétaro in late 1866. The city was besieged for months. Supplies dwindled. Morale collapsed. Any realistic chance of escape vanished. In May of 1867, Maximilian was captured by Republican forces and tried by a military court. On June 19, 1867, Maximilian was executed by firing squad at Cerro de las Campanas, alongside two loyal Mexican generals. He was 34 years old and had been Emperor of Mexico for about 3 years. His body was repatriated to Austria 6 months later. This, apparently, is the casket he was shipped home in, but not buried in. His final year was not marked by dramatic reversals or sudden tragedy, but by a series of choices made too late, based on assumptions that no longer, if ever, applied, ending an empire that never truly existed beyond the presence of foreign bayonets. He had always been a puppet for the French regime. He merely didn't feel Napoleon's hand up his ass, controlling the motions of the doomed empire. So what did we learn? When given the choice, do nothing. Ambition is for people who seek glory that wasn't meant to be, and ultimately get shot in the face.